they performed very well. And the analogy that keeps coming into my mind when I think about the African Championship, and I'll explain this analogy, is that we brought knives to a gunfight.
Wow.
And what I mean by that is, like, Jarrett and Mita, they were very sharp in their games and in their execution. But there was one country that had a higher level of technology in their jiu-jitsu game. They were more developed, more advanced, and they have had jiu-jitsu in their country for at least 15 years longer than Ethiopia has had Brazilian jiu-jitsu, at least. And like I said, our competitors, they did well, but there was some very advanced competition, and that was the Angolan team. And at the championship, it was in Angola, so it's easier to have a lot more Angolans present when the championship's in Angola. A lot of African countries had large costs to incur just to show up at the African Championship. And obviously for the Angolans, maybe a bus ride for some folks, maybe even less than that for others, because it was in the capital. So they had all the divisions stacked with Angolans, which is great. That I love to see that Angola represented, and got to spend some time with some of the individuals responsible for the growth of BJJ in Angola and some of the organizers. So it was a great learning experience for us. As you know, Garmamie, you're more familiar with the three different sports represented at the African Championship than I am. As a fighting style, duo, and then Nuwaza. So because we had two competitors there, and because we had there was so much commitment on behalf of our competitors to get there, they jumped into the fighting system divisions as well, which we don't train regularly at Cal BJJ in Ethiopia. But a lot of Ethiopians, as you're well aware, they come from striking arts and gravitate towards jiu-jitsu maybe later in their martial arts careers. So Jarrett, and he's had plenty of striking experience. He's had plenty of fighting experience in competition. So he jumped in to the fighting division, as did Mita. Mita has had less striking experience, but she is maybe just a born fighter. I don't know how to describe her, but in her first fighting match, she damn near knocked the girl off the mats with a right hook and got disqualified.
Wow! Wow!
And it was nothing mean-spirited. I mean, she became very friendly with that individual after the competition. And it's a very technical sport, the fighting division. It's very technical, and it was a sport that we were learning the rules of as we were competing, which was interesting. But again, that's not what we train, and that's not what we went for. We competed because we were there, and there was an additional division that our competitors could jump into, and Mita was all for it, and Jared, he agreed to join fighting as well after, because his jiu-jitsu was first, so he agreed to join fighting. So fighting was great. Like I said, Mita was disqualified from the one fight, but she still placed silver in fighting. And Jared, he fought for bronze, and it was a very close match for bronze, and he fell off the podium in the bronze match. But for these two competitors not training in fighting, it was amazing that they did as well as they did. And then in jiu-jitsu, which is what we were really there for, the Nuwaza, both of our competitors, they ran into an entanglement when their competitors pulled guard. Jared and Mita both have good judo backgrounds, very solid judo backgrounds, and the opportunity to put that judo on display was taken away by the Angolans, who all seemed to pull guard. It seemed very common for the Angolans to pull guard, which is just in terms of us and having knowledge on our competitors and in the region, it's good to have that knowledge now. I mean, Yared was the reigning African champion in his division, and the Angolans, the previous African championship was actually in Morocco, Northern Africa. That's a long way from Angola, and I haven't looked it up, but Yared mentioned to me that the Angolans, they weren't present in 2019. So it was kind of a very well-kept secret how developed their jiu-jitsu was. I talked to one of their organizers, the person who actually organized the first BJJ tournament in Angola. His name is Flavio, and he said BJJ came to Angola in 2003. A couple black belts from Portugal came and started a couple different schools. And I said, well, how did you guys start your competition culture? And he's like, well, you only need 2 teams to start a competition, and then you can really grow a platform. And it made a lot of sense, but it was also a little disheartening because we have 1 team in Ethiopia. So when he said, you only need 2 teams and you're good to go, I was like, well, we're going to have to figure out a workaround then in Ethiopia. But he said he set up the first tournament in 2003. One of the big things that came out of that for him was the organizers learned how to organize. So, I mean, it's not just you have 2 teams and they compete and they grow. It's you have to have people who know how to organize a tournament. You need to have referees who know how to referee a tournament, coaches. So there's a lot of different skill sets that need to grow. And that was eye-opening for me because, I mean, I'm just a guy who likes jiu-jitsu. I don't have a background in organizing or refereeing. You know, as you come up through jiu-jitsu, you learn to coach, but really what most people want is they want to have their own coach and they want to get better at their own game and they want to grow in their own discipline. But so that was an eye-opening conversation with Flavio, and it inspired us in Ethiopia to organize our own tournament. But because we only have 1 team, we organized a red team, blue team. We split the team in half, and we coordinated an in-house intramural tournament inspired by the African Championship. So a lot came out of it. In addition to the 3 medals that our competitors did bring home, just seeing what the landscape is on the continent, seeing where the bar has been set by the Angolan team, that was really the from my perspective as a coach, that was really the value of us showing up and competing, in addition to some of our top competitors getting mat experience, competition experience on a bigger stage, which was for them individually. I mean, you can't measure that. That's a fantastic opportunity for them.
This is really interesting. I have a lot of questions to ask you about and Angola in particular to what you saw as far as the quality of jiu-jitsu, as well as how the Ethiopian team did. One thing I just want to flag in advance is recently IMAF held, the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation held their own African mixed martial arts championship in South Africa. And the Angolans, man, they showed up and they represented and they made the podium. So it looks like Angola is a key player. I mean, they are a key player as well in judo, you know, continentally, and they certainly are a combat sports country. And it's really interesting to hear, you know, this brief history you gave us in regards to BJJ in Angola.